Hello everyone, this is Muted and Nuts, and today we'll be continuing our beginner-friendly Road to OSCP video series. Today we'll be looking at another HackTheBox machine, that is BOF. BOF is based on Windows and the difficulty is easy, so let's just get started. So first thing, what I always do is whenever I do a box, I do an AutoRecon. I run an AutoRecon scan, and AutoRecon helps me with multiple things over here. First it will do quick TCP, then full TCP, and based on the output it's gonna give me additional scans. It's gonna do scans on SMB port if it's open, and so on. So that's why I highly recommend running it, and especially for the OSCP exam as well. So I run this, and it's not that you should always rely on the scan result. Obviously know how to run things manually as well. So I'll be running this autorecon.py. It's available on GitHub, you can get it from there. And I'll be giving sudo over here because I want the UDP scan to run as well. I'll be giving Python 3 in order to run this, and also I'll be giving the IP address, that is the target IP address for BOF, that is 10.10.10.198. I'll be giving the O switch for output directory where I want to save the output file. Okay, so I did already execute this scan because it takes some time to run, so I'm not going to execute it again. So let's just go and look at the scan result. So first thing is, I always look at the full TCP and map scan, and if we see over here, we can see that only two ports are open, that is port 7680 and the service it's not sure. So whenever Nmap is not sure about things, it's gonna put a question mark after it. So that means it's not sure and it's not confirmed yet that what service it's running. And over here, if you see, we have 8080 that is running HTTP service, and there's a web server over here, Apache web server running. So obviously we can go and check for this first and see if we get some additional information over here. So obviously first thing, let's just go and check it. That's on port 8080. It's not on port 80 by default. It's on a different port, that is port 8080. So let's just go and check that. And over here we come across this particular HTTP page. It says fitness and all this kind of thing. Okay, so you can go and try to enumerate this further. And also whenever there's a web application, I do recommend running GoBuster as well. And over here AutoRecon does an normal GoBuster scan, like a common TXT GoBuster scan, I guess. But in this particular web application, that GoBuster scan will output everything over here. Okay, so it's gonna send so this is what's gonna happen. Everything's gonna come over here on the GoBuster scan. And if this is the case, generally what you can do is you can just try and search for status 200 over here or 301s, which is like the redirects. And also you can check in BOF, you can intercept the request in BOF, and in the history you can check for the file size, like if it is big or small, because if the file size is different, that means you got some different value, right? So that way, this is the protection what web applications usually use, so that's why. Okay, so we don't have anything much over here in GoBuster, but if we scroll across over here, and when I did the box initially, I came across few errors or something on the web application itself. So I thought probably this is some custom-made web application. I tried to have some RC or something through the web app, but that was not the case, and it was fairly simple, this box. So I initially thought that, but if you just scroll around and you click on all these links, if you come across over here, it says MRB 3Ns Bro Hot, made using Gym Management Software 1.0. So when I saw this thing particularly over here, I thought probably this is some gym management software, which is like some open source or some vendor software. So what I'll try to do is, first thing, obviously check for this in Searchploit or in ExploitDB. So let's just do that first. Let's just go to our exploit folder, and then later on, so the GoBuster does create this exploit folder for you, these 4 directories. So let's just go in exploit folder over here and do a Searchploit. Searchploit is our local database, and if you guys don't know, it's like having the ExploitDB exploits and everything in Searchploit in your local system, Kali machine. So I'll just Searchploit using Gym Management. Let's see if we get something, and over here, if we see, we get something like Gym Management System 1.0. This is the same thing probably, instead of software, it's system. So there's no harm, because Gym Management and 1.0 as well, there's a version number as well, and it says unauthenticated remote command execution. Now obviously over here we do have a login page as well. You can try for SQL injections or something over there, but over here in the exploit itself it says unauthenticated. Unauthenticated means that you don't have to have valid credentials and valid login. you can do RC without it. So might as well just try this particular exploit. So if you want to mirror it, so just do source exploit and switch, do this. So this will actually copy the exploit in your current working directory, that is the exploit directory over here. So let's just go to exploit, ignore this directory for now, and this is the exploit which we are looking at. And there are multiple things over here, and if you just go through the exploit in the details, it's gonna explain few things like what it's actually trying to do. But in general, you can obviously whenever you run an exploit, make sure you know what it's actually trying to do. So just to give a quick summary what this exploit is doing, it's trying to create some file that is this kamehameha.php. It's going to upload that file over there, and that's going to act like a web shell to us. Okay, and if you see over here, probably there's a code written as well. This is the file it's going to transfer. Actually, there's a PNG image which is going to transfer, and going to convert it over there. It's going to send this magic bytes or something. So we can actually try and inject our code over here. If you want a custom web application, not custom web application, but a web shell, custom web shell, you can inject your code over here itself, or you can just leave this exploit as it is. You don't need to do anything. The usage is given over here. You have to just enter Python and the exploit name, and then HTTP, that's the web application, and gem over here. So if we look at this thing, okay, let's just try to run this thing. You don't have to modify anything. Ensure it's going to create a web shell for you named kamehameha.php, and that's what it's going to do. If it's successful, it's going to say successful connected to web shell. Let's just try running this exploit and see if it works. Obviously the entire working is given over here. You can go through it, but let's just quickly go and see. So this is basically like file upload vulnerability, which will give us RC later. Okay, so what we'll try to do is we'll just try to rename this exploit first, and we just have this exploit, so let's just rename it to something better. Web exploit.py. okay, and probably we'll have to, okay, I don't think we need to chmod it because already we have execute permissions over here. Okay, so let's just try to run this exploit, and we'll not enter anything. Obviously the usage will come up over here, but I highly recommend checking the exploit code and see what it actually is. Okay, exploit says that you need to run this and give the HTTP as well, so we can give that probably in code, so without codes as well is fine, I guess. So let's just try to do this, and over here it will say remember to give the port. This is not 443 for us, it's the port is 8080. Okay, so let's just try to do that. And also it says gem over here, so probably it's indicating that probably there's some directory named gem over here. So let's just try that and see if this, no, but in short it actually means that this gem application, this whole application itself is gem directory. So probably it would be like this entire application is the gem directory. So probably if you just enter something like gem over here, then this entire application will load out. That's why I guess they have given that gem over there. So let's just try to, you can add that and see, but that's not going to work. So let's just try to move on, leave that gem aside, and let's just hit exploit and wait for some time. You get some sort over here and say successfully connected to web shell. We get a Windows path over here as well. Okay, so we do have the Windows part, and we can just do who am I over here, and we get some username that is buff Shaun. So we have exploited a username. Okay, owned users, that is Shaun. So Shaun is owned over here. Obviously we don't have his creds, but we have RC as Shaun. So we come in this xampp htdocs directory. That means gem is already present. So that's what I was speaking about. The gem, the web server is running in such a way that this gem particularly over here is this entire application. There's no gem after that. Okay, so that's the case, and we come across over here, and if we just do dir over here, we do have this kamehameha.php, which I was speaking about earlier, right? It's going to upload a file that this is the one which you're looking for. And if we just do this, I hope we can see the contents of this. Okay, that's a PNG file probably, so that's why, I don't know, because it gave the magic bytes over there, so probably it's not coming up. Okay, anyway, we have RC, and this is just RC. This is not a shell basically, because if you try to go back, that's not going to work for you, because this is what it's actually trying to do is it's just trying to execute a command over. If you look at this code, it says shell execute whatever you're going to get over there. So in short, even if I do cd back, it's not actually going to go back because that web file or the web shell is actually present in this upload directory over here. Okay, so we are not going to go back, but obviously you can do something like cd and go to C directory and then later on do a dir. This is just a quick thing, like, you know, to know. And if you do that, you can actually see the C drive contents over here. But this is not actual web shell, sorry, actual reverse shell or proper shell. So we need to upgrade the shell. This is just a RC, and this, you know, it mimics, you know, as if it is a shell or something. But what it's doing is, if I just enter dir over here, it's gonna send a request to this particular thing over here in this exploit, whatever code we have uploaded, by the way, I'm just referring to the exploit, and it's gonna execute that. That's it. Every now and then it's going to execute that. So what we'll try to do is we'll just try to upgrade the shell, and for that I'll just check for netcat, because it's much better to upgrade using netcat, and locate nc.exe. Get this from your Kali machine Windows resources binary nc.exe and copy it to your current working directory. So I did copy it over here, and instead of transferring the file, see, in the Windows boxes, there are, like, you know, AVs and all present over here, and probably it may delete it. So I don't want to mess with the AV or something like that. So what I'll try to do is I'll just try to run it directly from the SMB server. Okay, so I do have that SMB directory created over here, but I'll just create a SMB, okay, mkdir SMB2, just say SMB2. And I'll just try to copy this NC directory over here in SMB2. So another thing is, we'll just create a SMB server over here just to, you know, execute that file using SMB server over here. So what we'll try to do is, first thing, sudo impacket. Why sudo? Because I'm running the box as Kali and not root. You need to have root permissions for that. So SMB server, and then the shared directory name. So I'll just give mutated nuts. You can give any name you want. And then the file location. So the file location is this entire thing, and SMB2. So before that, I'll just go to SMB2 directory, and then I'll just enter this sudo impacket SMB server mutated nuts, and then the shared directory name. Or what I can do is, since I'm already in the current directory, that is SMB2, I can just use this thing over here, the one besides the one button, okay, one number, and pwd, use it again. So if I do that, this basically is actually going to do a pwd like your current working directory, and that's what it is actually going to take up as. So let's just hit this, enter your password if you're not root. If you're root, it does not matter, and the SMB server has started. Now what I'll try to do is I'll execute this file, that's the netcat file which is present in the SMB2 server, to get a reverse shell. So first, let me just try and head this to the network drive, that is the SMB server. I'll enter my attack machine's IP address, that is 1435, and then the shared directory name, that is mutated nuts, because this is what I've given over here. You have to enter the same thing, make sure you do that, and then enter nc.exe. I'll execute this file, but obviously I have to give some parameter to execute the file and, you know, redirect it to my attack machine or something like that. So probably this is getting a bit messy, so I'll just try to create another terminal over here. I'll just do nc netcat. If you guys don't know what netcat is, it's going to give a connection, you know, from the target machine to the attack machine, and that's how we are going to get our reverse shell. Okay, so we'll give n for numeric IPs only, v for more verbose output, l for listing more, and p for port numbers. So we'll give the port number 4444. You can give any port number you want except for the standard ones. And over here we need to give the E switch. Okay, how usually in Linux boxes we give the C switch, right? So we'll just give the E switch over here, that's for execute the command, and we'll execute cmd.exe. You can even give PowerShell as well, but let's just go with cmd.exe now, and later on we have to redirect it to the IP address, that is this thing again. So why we have to give it twice? Because this is just getting from the network drive. You're executing this file from the network drive, then you're giving a command parameter, then you have to give cmd, and then you have to give your attack machine's IP address, because it has to come back, right? First you're executing the file, then you're sending a reverse shell using this entire command over here, 10 10 14 35, and then the port number, that is 4444, because that's the same port which we are listening on. I just hit enter over here, and over here for some reason this SMB thing would not work, because we need to actually give SMB2 support over here, because in this box it does not work otherwise. So just give SMB2 support. In the recent Windows boxes you need to give SMB2 support, otherwise SMB1 is outdated, so it will not support that. So let's just do that, and let's just try to run this thing again over here. Hopefully this thing works. So let's just do that and say is authenticated, and let's just wait for some time and wait for our shell over here. Let's see if we do get a proper shell. This is just RCE, it's not a shell. This left terminal over here, and over here we do get our shell. And if I just do who am I, this is a much better looking shell, buff Shaun. So now I can go back to the users directory. I can check for users. We do have Shaun user over here, so let's just go to Shaun dir, and then later on let's go to desktop. We get a flag, right? So let's just see if our flag is over here, and we do have the user txt. I'm not gonna type it or something, so that's a flag over here. You can get it from here. That's how you get user access. Now for admin access, obviously you can just check for who am I, which groups you belong to, and some manual information, system info. You can do system info. Obviously I usually do that first and see what kind of a system it is. We do have x64-bit system over here. This is a bit interesting. We do have Windows 10 Enterprise version. Do have build number. You can check for any exploits or something for this, or you can move on and check for any files in this particular Shaun directory. Usually when you land up in that web application itself, you can check for credentials and everything, but that was not the case. I could not find anything over there like interesting which would help me escalate. Obviously there were a few things, but that's not where the internet path or something. So we do have that thing present, and then later on we do have the okay, so in this directory what we'll try to do is we'll just go over here to this downloads directory over here. We can just try to enumerate and see documents, downloads. I usually check the users directory one by one and see if I find anything, and over here I do see something like Cloudme 1112 exe. So this is what I saw over here, and since there is a standalone exe file, executable file, there's a high chance that probably that will be our indented part or something. And what we can see is if this actually this file is actually running or something. So let's just do task list first over here and see what all processes are running. So there are multiple processes running over here, and over here if we just quickly see, we do have cloudme.exe running. Okay, so this is what's running over here, cloudme.exe, and with this process ID present over here. So in short, cloudme.exe is running. Next step is, since we have an executable file, let's see if we do have RC for that or something like that, sorry, so that we can escalate our privileges or something. So what we'll try to do is we'll just try and create, okay, let's just do search exploit against Cloudme. I think this will be fine, and we do get multiple exploits over here. And if we see, I think the application what we have is Cloudme itself, and it's not Cloudme sync. And if we see the version number over here, 1.11.2, and over here we did see that the version number was 1112. So this can be represented in many ways. It can actually mean like 1.11.2, which is the same over here. So since we have few exploits over here, let's just try that and see if we get something. Obviously we do have this remote thing present, and just to be make sure, like I tried multiple things over here, and then I could actually come up with a specific thing. I don't have tunnel vision that, oh yeah, I know this is the right working exploit. Let's just try that and get RC. That's not the way. So we have this particular exploit. Let's see what this exploit is about. Okay, so let's just do search exploit and then switch for mirror and Windows remote. Let's just do this so that it gets copied to our current working directory. Let's just do that. We do have the file over here. Let's just open this exploit now, and we do see that it is a buffer overflow POC. Obviously over here as well it was mentioned buffer overflow, but let's just go over here, and it says that it's a buffer overflow POC, and it says instruction, start the Cloudme service and run the script. Target, it says 127001. For some reason this over here it mentions remote, but for some reason I think the expert is local. So because I don't know, it gave 127001. Okay, never mind. So we do have this thing present, and the creator of this exploit was very kind enough, usually because in some exploits we don't get that, you know, buffer overflow code. Like, how did they generate that? Because of the bad characters. Like or you know, whoever has created this, the author, has actually given the bad characters over here. So this is going to help us a lot, because since we know the bad characters already, we can just create a MSFNM payload and paste it over here, and it will be good to go. Over here it's just, you know, trying to create a calculator.exe, just trying to execute that, but that's not what we want. And over here, if you just scroll below, it says this is obviously the IP address which we are going to connect to. We'll come to that in a bit. And over here it says target 8888. Okay, so this is what is present over here, 8888. So this is one thing to note, that this is, you know, this particular port is present over here. And if you just go to our scan result earlier, we do have some 7680 ports. So earlier I thought probably 8888 is not the actual port, but this Cloudme service is running on a different port over here, that is 7680. This is what I thought, and I tried the exploit over there. That's not the way to actually go. Then what I actually did was I just went to our shell and I just did net start over here with ANO. A is for all active connections and N is for numeric IPs to display it over there. And yeah, O is for to mention the process ID and everything. So let's just do net start ANO. And if you just scroll over here, we have multiple TCP connections present over here. We do have few present over here as well. Okay, let's just try and, you know, do a find string for port 8888 and see if we just get something over here. So let's just do net start ANO and find string 8888. Let's just do that, and we do have this particular port present over here, that is listening mode. And this particular port, it's actually a local host IP address. Okay, so 127.0.0.1, 127.0.0.1. So now over here, this thing is listening, but it's actually not listening on any network port or 00. So if it mentions 000, that means anybody can, you know, get that service. But it is actually present on 127.0.0.0, sorry, 127.0.0.1. What it actually means is this is accessible only from the local host itself. It's not accessible from the outside. That's why we cannot see anything on our scan result earlier, that's why we cannot see 8888 over here. That's the reason. So over here, if we scroll below, we do have this 8080 present, right? So this thing is present over here, and what we'll try to do now is, since this thing is actually present, we can actually try and, you know, get this particular thing up. And okay, so in short, this is present on the local host. This exploit is present. We can run it on local, but this is a Python exploit, and in order to run this, we'll probably need to have Python or something installed. I'm not sure that is the case. There are two ways to do it. You can actually, I think, create a executable file which can execute this entire Python code and, you know, transfer it. But since the Windows EV and all was present, I do not want to mess with it. And what I tried to do was I just, you know, try to do a port tunneling from my local machine to the remote machine. And when I did the box for the first time, okay, this was actually done by using Plink. And recently HackTheBox had some changes with port 22 SSH, and you cannot actually connect to that. Obviously you can change the default port to some 2222 or something like that, but let's just try and do in a bit easier way. Okay, so we have this exploit over here. So first thing is, we need to obviously modify this entire code, and we need to change this thing present over here. But first we need to, you know, somehow find a remote connection way. Like, how do you actually get something from your Kali machines to your buff machine? So over here, in short, if we just go to C, we do have port 127.0.0.1 and then the port number, that is 8888. So let's just try to color code it so that's easier to understand. Okay, we do have this port, and this thing is actually not accessible from here. It is not accessible, so we cannot access this particular thing over here. So we need to somehow create a connection from this Kali machine to this particular port. Somehow we need to have a proper connection over here, then we can actually execute this particular POC script. So for that, we'll be using Chisel. So you can just go on Google and okay, probably you'll get some Chisel images. Okay, let's just go to GitHub, and this is the first thing what we're gonna get: tunnel over HTTP. So this thing, if you just try to read, it'll be a bit complicated to understand what it's trying to do. I'll try my best, to make things simpler, and how you can actually execute this file properly. So for this thing to actually execute properly, you need to go to this releases section over here, and once you go over here, you go to downloads over here, and you download this AMD Linux AMD 64. You need to download this file, and also you need to download another file, that is the Windows AMD 64. These two files you need to download, and I've already downloaded in my system, so I'm not going to do it again. You can just go and download it and unzip the file. So once you do that, you're going to get something like these two files over here. This is the exe file from the Windows, and this is the Chisel file, that's the executable file for Linux machine, which you get from this AMD 64. Make sure you download the same thing. And we do have these two files present. Now we need to transfer this chisel.exe and Chisel over here. Sorry, we need to transfer the chisel.exe to the Windows machine first. So let's just try to do that, and let's just copy this thing to our SMB2 server, since our server is already running over here, and also we'll require this Chisel, so I'll just copy it over here itself. This did not magically come over here, obviously I had transferred it earlier. So we do have Chisel over here, and we do need to transfer that particular chisel.exe. So over here, I'll just try to create in the downloads directory itself. I don't want to ruin the box for others as well, so after my usage, I'll probably delete that file from here. But I think in the downloads itself, I'll just try to create, or in the desktop, but usually people go in the desktop first to get the flag or something, so I'll just create it over here. You can create in a temp directory itself, but I'll just create the file over here. So I'll just try to copy it from my shared directory, that is 1435, sorry, and then it's muted and nuts, and then I'll copy chisel.exe, this thing. So this may take some time. Obviously we did get a request over here, and it may take some time to connect, so I'll just pause the video, and once the transfer is done, I'll just resume back again. Okay, so the file has been transferred now, okay, because the file was like around 8 MB, so it took some time and some attempts. So okay, so the file is over here now, chisel.exe, and this is present over here. And what we can do is, in order to create a tunnel, right, which we were seeing earlier, we need to have some things in place. So we need to create a Chisel server, and you can check out the usage over here as well, like how are you going to create the server and everything. But in short, I'll just tell you all what to do. So first thing is, in your attack machine where you have that Chisel thing present, right? So let's just go over here, and we have this Chisel application present over here, which is the executable file. That is this. So we need to execute that. We need to start that first. So we can start Chisel, and then we need to give server. So server means, because this is on the attack machine, we are going to run a server. So we'll just enter server over here, and then we'll enter the reverse and port. So reverse is for the reverse server, which you're going to enter over here. So enter this switch over here, and then later on give the port switch, which port you want to run on. So over here, just to make a bit, let's just see this. Okay, let's just close this thing. I'll just show you all how it actually works. So if we do net start over here with NT, L, and U probably for the listening connections over here. So we do have, and I'll just do something like grep 9001. I'm pretty sure there's nothing running over here. Okay, so let's just try and run this particular Chisel server reverse port 9001. We are starting a server. This server is started. It's listening on this particular thing. Now once we do this, we do get this listening thing present over here. That means the server has started on this particular port 9001. This is done on attack machine. We need to enter this entire thing. Okay, so we do that and we enter this thing. And on our target machine, what we need to do is we need to execute this Chisel file. So let's just give chisel.exe. Then we need to give client over here. Okay, the client, which because we are acting like a client, right? So I'll be mentioning client over here. Sorry. And also I'll be actually mentioning the IP address and port number of this particular server, because we are a client, we need to connect to a server. So we'll give the IP address That is this in my HackTheBox VPN. That's my IP address. Attack machine's IP address, Kali machine, and then I'll be giving 9001. This is where I want to connect to. Okay, and over here another thing is I'll also grep for port. Probably I'll leave a different port since it's 8888 and something. So what I'll try to do is I'll try to forward. In short, what I want to do is just to get this connection proper, I'll just try to add over here 127.0.0.1 and port 4000 just to make things a bit easier to understand. I'll keep the ports different. So we do have port 4000 over here, and I'll just probably close this thing. So what I'll try to do is, this is working only on Kali, this is working on what do you say, on your target machine. And what I'll try to do is I'll just try to create a connection over here using Chisel. So this is what I'm trying to actually achieve using this port 9001 over here. So this is what I'll achieve from Chisel. So this is what it's gonna do. Chisel is actually gonna connect and create a port tunnel between this port of our Kali machine and between this port of our target machine. So this is what's actually going to happen. This port is internal only to Kali. This port is internal. That's why the same color as well. But this thing is actually going to help us over here. Okay, should have kept it. Okay, 9001, that server is going to work. So how it's going to work is you create this Chisel client, give the IP address of the server, that is nothing but this server that's running on this particular IP, and the port number. Now what we'll try to do is we need to give, you can either give R or L probably, but we'll just go for R, that is your remote server. So first what you need to enter is your remote port. Now since we are over here, this is the local machine, right? Since we are having RC over here, remote would be our Kali machine. So I'll enter 27001 and then I'll enter the port number, that is 4000. I want to transfer this port to this IP. So that now since we are having RC over here, right? We are having RC in our buff machine. Obviously I'm using it since from Kali, but I am like, who am I if I do? I'm buff, right? So I'm over here. This is my remote port now. This is my local port. This is my remote. This is my local. So I need to port tunnel this remote port to this local port. So that's what I'm going to do. I entered my remote port and IP address. This will not enter the the actual network IP, that is 10. Will enter this localhost IP. So we'll enter that, and then again we'll enter 127.0.0.1. Now we'll enter the local IP address 8888 because that's where probably our Cloudme instance is running. So we'll enter that, and over here before I start this thing or hit enter, I'll just do this thing again. Over here, grep for port 4000 just to see there's nothing present. Okay, there's nothing present over here. I'm just grepping. I'm doing a netstat. I don't want to list down all the connections. I'm doing a netstat and grep for 4000. Nothing's present. So I'll just try to run this thing now. You can do the same thing on Windows, but I'll just explain on Kali because I have to create another shell on Windows otherwise. So I'll just enter this. It says listening. Try and connect. Okay, for some reason it did not connect well. I'm not sure why. This thing is running over here, reverse port. Okay, my bad. We have to actually give this particular thing. So probably I'll have to, redo this entire thing over here. So probably have to terminate the shell. Let's just do that and see NVLP. Okay, let's try to run this thing again. I forgot to mention this thing over here, the colon. So that's the reason it's connecting to this port. By default, it's taking this port. Let's just wait for a shell. Let's just try to do that again and see. Usually I do have a, checklist or cheat sheet kind of a thing. So I have all the commands listed over there. So that's the reason, because at times you never know what's going wrong, and in the moment you're trying to solve the box, so you may miss this thing out and then it may be a big problem to you. Okay, so let's just try to run this thing. Okay, my bad. It was 444, but yeah, let's just try to run this, wait for the shell. Probably we'll have to go back to this directory, so let's just copy this as well. Okay, cd, we are in this directory, try to copy this and then give 9001 and then this entire thing. Only thing is I just gave a colon over there, and this thing is running over here. We did see this thing 4000, there's nothing present, so let's just run this and it says connected. Now over here it says tunnel successful from 4000 to 8888 of the machine. So now if I do this thing over here, we do have 4000 listening over here. This thing has started over here. So in short, this is how it works. And successfully we have created a connection, that is this particular thing over here. My bad. We have successfully created a connection. Connection is successful. Only thing left is we need to work on our exploit now. So we do have this exploit. I'll just rename it to BOF exp. Okay, and what we need to do is we need to obviously change the shellcode over here, the payload in short. So we need to change this thing, and over here this user, as I mentioned, was kind enough to give the entire bad characters and everything. We need to create a payload over here, so might as well create it over here. MSF Venom. We don't need Windows exe. We'll just enter shell reverse TCP. Another thing is the box is 64-bit itself, but the application is 32-bit. So that's why I probably give this particular thing 86, because 64-bit, the payload and the entire thing would be completely different. So just make sure you enter this thing as 32-bit and see if it works first, and probably it will work. So let's just go and check that. Windows shell reverse TCP, and see, the thing is, if it does not work over here, try the 64-bit. I don't think the 64-bit payload would work because this buffer overflow is for 32-bit itself, x86. The application is 32-bit, so probably it will run even though if it is a 64-bit system. So because the application would run in 32-bit, that's the case. So I'll just remove this command thing. You can add that as well, and we'll probably mention hello host over here. That is my attack machine's IP address. That is this, and L port over here, which port I want to connect to. Probably I'll just enter 5555 because 444 is in use. I'll just leave the bad characters aside, and also I'll give the O switch for output, and I'll just mention that buff.txt, something like that. So let's just try to do that. Probably take some time to create the actual payload, and we need to replace it over here. So let's just see this thing works. Probably take some time. And in the meantime, what we'll try to do is we'll just try to create a netcat listener as well, because that's what we are going to. Okay, so this thing is ready, so we'll just work with this first before going to the netcat listener. We have this buff payload. What I'll try to do is this buff thing, to avoid confusion, over here it mentions payload, and over here as well the variable has been called payload here as well. I don't want to mess with this. Like I usually, you know, I took that buff and I put it over here and I renamed this, but some of you may not be you know, that aware that what you have to actually replace, and the code would eventually not work. Just to keep things simple, what you can do is, okay, just get this search thing, find and replace, search for buff and replace it with payload. Replace all. Do this on mousepad. I'm using mousepad for this. I'll select everything, Control C, and I'll just remove this thing over here, overwrite it, I'll just delete it probably, and then write this thing. So payload is ready. I've, you know, it was buff over here, I changed it to payload, that's it. And 127 this, and over here the port, since it's giving 8888, we need to change it to 4000. You can keep 8888, but since I wanted to actually explain, like, you know, why is this thing happening, you know, in different ports, because if I keep port 888 over here, you guys may get confused at what's actually happening. That's why I kept a different port number. So we do have port 4000 over here, because when we run this payload on a local machine, it's going to connect to this IP, that is the local host, and it's going to connect to this port. So once it's connected to 4000, this thing, our Chisel server is going to, you know, transfer it to this 8888. That's how port tunneling would work. So we do have this thing present over here, and we have saved it, buff exp. Let's just try to run and see if this thing works. We do have, okay, let's just start our netcat listener over here on port 5555. My bad. Okay, let's just do that, and then over here just run this as buff exp or exploit. I think it was exp. It's okay. Let's just run this and we'll see if we get something over here. Unfortunately, we don't get anything. So let's just try running it again once more and see if we get something. And we do get it over here, because at times this, the shell would probably not work on the first go itself. And this box, it's, I think, a bit unstable, because at times the exploit would not work. So you need to reset the box and get it working, because it's a buffer overflow. The application may freeze up or something. But eventually give it a try and see, reset the box and see, and probably you will get where you'll get this system shell. Now, how do we know it's system? Because if you do who am I, we are over here as buff administrator, not system, but administrator. So that means that Cloudme service, which was present, was actually running as administrator account. Okay, so that's the reason we got administrator shell once we got RC through buffer overflow in that Cloudme instance. So now we can go to users over here, we can go to administrator, and we can go to the desktop directory and get our root txt flag. So that's how it was done. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, and this box was like, it's a bit on the easier side, but it's a bit unstable if there are multiple users trying for the same buffer overflow exploit. And the user was pretty easy, but okay, so just to give a summary, what we did was we did check this Brohat gym software. We did come across this particular gym management thing over here, and after that we tried to get an exploit done. We got an RC, but that was just RC, it was not a shell. We upgraded our shell using netcat and SMB, and after that we did get and see Cloudme instance exe file present. We did see the instance running as well, and from that we actually saw that we saw the exploit for that, and there was an exploit available, but it was for port 8888. Then we saw netcat, sorry, not netcat but netstat. We did see that port 888 is running internally and it is not exposed outside the local host buff machine. So to achieve that, we use Chisel over here. So I'll just mention it as well. We use Chisel. So Chisel helped us over here, and Chisel helped us to connect this port and this port, have a port tunneling done over here. And after we did this port tunneling, so we were able to run that buffer overflow after updating the payload. Obviously we were able to run it and achieve administrator shell. So that's what it was, and buff, probably that's what it means, like buffer overflow. So that's another thing present over there. So this was the box, and if you guys like the video, do give a thumbs up, do subscribe for more upcoming videos. I do multiple videos, like not only this platform, some vulnerable boxes as well. And yeah, do subscribe for more upcoming videos. And if you all have any queries, please ask me in the comments below. And if you all have any tips and tricks or suggestions, you can let me know that as well. So thank you.